webcasting introduction. This meeting is to be webcast. Members are reminded of the need to put their microphone on before speaking. I would like to remind everyone the meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. I don't think the members of the public have been admitted already. If there are any technical difficulties that interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting. We'll hope that that isn't necessary. For the purpose of the webcast and for this meeting, if I could just introduce myself. I'm Councillor Paul Kesker and I'm chairman of today's panel. To my right is Councillor Anna Lyon and then Councillor Ian Hadley, who are the panel. To my left is our legal officer. To his left is our Democratic Services officer, who is going to take the minutes of today's meeting. And right over there is the young lady who's going to make sure that we're broadcast to the world. I'll just outline how this is going to work. The procedure is that the licensing officer will outline the application and the applicant will then present their case with or without their witnesses. They will then be questioned by the panel and any objectors who wish to make a statement and may wish to ask questions. The panel can then ask the objectors questions. Finally, the applicant has the right to sum up, but without introducing anything new that wasn't mentioned in the first statement. So, we'll ask licensing, and I think today our officer is Dave King, who is going to take us through the application, which is, to be detailed, which is a premises licence for Ongar Station, Station Approach, High Street, Ongar, CM5 9BN. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. An application has been made by Epping Ongar Railway Holdings Limited for the grant of a new premise licence at Ongar Station. The application seeks permission for the sale of alcohol for consumption both on and off the premises on Fridays between 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m, Saturdays between 9:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m, and on Sundays between 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. These standard timings will apply to alcohol sales between February to October only. And the application also seeks permission to sell alcohol on all bank holidays that fall within these months between 9:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. During this period, the opening hours of the premises will be 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. on Friday and Sunday, and between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Saturdays and bank holidays. Between November and January, the hours during which alcohol will be sold is from 4 p.m. until 9:30 p.m. on Wednesdays through to Sundays. It will also allow the sale of alcohol between these hours on the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd and 23rd of December, where these dates fall outside of those days. During this period, the opening hours of the premises shall be 4:30 p.m. until 10 p.m. Full details of the application, including the operating schedule, which sets out the conditions that will be attached to the licence, if granted, can be found within the report. The application was received on the 16th of September 2022. The responsible authorities have all received a copy of the application. It was also advertised at the premises and in a local newspaper. A copy of the blue notice and the newspaper advert are attached to this report. All residences and businesses within 150 metres radius of the premises were also written to and notified of the application. During the consultation period, we received a response from Essex Police recommending that the premises shall clearly display signs at each point of sale and in areas where alcohol is displayed, advising customers that a Challenge 25 policy is in force. This condition has been agreed by the applicant. We have also received a further 9 representations opposing the granting of the licence from local residents. The objections relate to the prevention of crime and disorder, the protection of children from harm, public safety and the prevention of public nuisance. Copies of the objections received are attached to this report. The subcommittee is therefore asked to determine the application having regard to the content of the report and the representations received, any additional information obtained from the hearing, the Council statement of licensing policy, guidance issued by the Secretary of State, and the steps appropriate to promote the licensing objectives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We will now ask the applicant. Can I just ask everyone who speaks, before they speak, to just state clearly their name so that the record has it and we can keep the minutes of the meeting correctly. So,
good morning, Chair. My name's Dean Walton. I'm the General Manager of the Epping Ongar Railway. By way of an opening statement, just a bit of background, I became a volunteer on the railway in November 2011, and in 2014 I took a full-time position of the railway. I'm now the railway's General Manager. Before I get into the detail of the application, I'd like to offer a bit of background history about the railway itself. It opened as an extension from Loughton to Epping in 1865, courtesy of the 1859 Epping Railways Act. Over the years, it served the local farms and allowed communities serving the line to expand. In 1994, services in the branch were withdrawn by London Transport and the railway subsequently sold. Following a major investment by the current owner, passenger services commenced in 2012 as a volunteer-led heritage railway operating between Epping and Ongar, with stations at both North Weald and Ongar. Clearly our buses provide the link between Epping and North Weald. Our volunteers, and I think this is relevant to some of the comments made in the objections, come from the local area, and many are retired and come from a wide range of backgrounds, including ex-police and customs officers, railway professionals, small business owners and professional engineers. The railway is now an important family-friendly visitor attraction in the district, and the last time we've got to do proper figures, in 2019 we carried over 45,000 passengers. Unusually, I suspect, for a visitor attraction of this size, we don't actually have a premises licence in operation currently at our Ongar station. What we have done, and what we continue to do, is we make use of the right to sell alcohol on a train that is in the course of its journey, which is subject to different regulations. But obviously we want to widen the scope of this to make it better and more convenient for our passengers. We applied in 2021 successfully for a similar premises licence at our North Weald station, and this has been operated successfully with no detriment to local residents. In addition, we have successfully applied for many temporary event notices at our North Weald station over the years for events ranging from our Real Ale Festival, Santa Specials, Halloween and a Murder Mystery Evening. During this application and those applications, we have been keen to only apply for those hours which we needed during the main part of the season, which is why we have our sort of, in some ways, complicated summer and winter schedules set out by the officer earlier. There's no intention to use our licence to create a destination in its own right. Our main target is our customers. Those are the people we want to sell our alcohol to. This application, made in August this year, is very similar to the one that was granted at North Weald Station. As I've noted before, it is to allow the supply of alcoholic drinks to our passengers. There's that complicated schedule. And the other side to point out with that is those timings, the start and finish of those schedules, is geared to when we plan to run our trains. As I guess, put simply, our licence is intended to allow our volunteers. Put simply, the licence is intended to allow our volunteers to sell the passengers a bottle of beer, a bottle of wine or prosecco or some other alcoholic drink, along with something to eat whilst waiting for a train on the platform, in the waiting rooms or in the picnic area at Ongar Station, or to take on their train for their journey. I guess to allay some of the concerns that we're opening a pub, and that's the word that some of the objectors have used, it's hopeful to highlight that we have some seating areas around the station. We've got a waiting room, we've got the train if it's there, we have the picnic area. However, apart from the train, they're not particularly comfortable, and the intention has always been that the passengers stay for a short while before moving on. On Friday, for instance, during the summer, our opening hours are aligned to our passenger hours, and later opening times on Saturday will allow us to serve alcohol to our passengers at our popular fish and chip trains in Ongar if needed. During the season, we have a major Real Ale Festival based at North Weald in July, which is covered by a separate temporary event notice and therefore not covered by this particular application. We're a heritage railway, not a pub or a restaurant. On the other side of it, allied to our being a visitor attraction, passengers will be able to buy a souvenir selection of locally brewed beers from the gift shop to take home. And it is these earlier opening hours, aligned with our shop opening hours, that take place early in the morning. This is the type of thing that we'll be looking to sell at our gift shop. There's no line of optics at the back there. There's no pubs. There's no pub basing. We're not selling that. There is no intention to sell alcohol for consumption on the premises at these times. These are very much like would occur at a National Trust property or other similar attraction. That's probably what I want to say about it, but obviously I'm here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. If you could turn your microphone off. We'll start first with the panel. Councillor Lyon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just sort of bearing in mind some of the comments from the objectors, you're a volunteer organisation. How are you going to make sure that you have enough trained volunteers and people that can actually make sure this licence is working as it should do?
We manage the competence of our volunteers in relation to all sorts of safety critical areas that we do. And in particular, for the licensing side of things, we have a briefing document explaining the licensing objectives and how the railway will be expected to pull that. We've already taken on board the police request that we should have a notice that says Challenge 25. Our volunteers are aware of that, and that's how we look to deliver that, Councillor Lyon. Thank you.
No, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, could you tell me what the profile is of your average visitor?
Our visitors come from a wide range of backgrounds, but typically we're a family-friendly, family-focused attraction. So we're looking for mum, dad, or perhaps other families with a couple of children. We have that's what should we say, the bread and butter of our railway is. We obviously have, as I've mentioned, that for 3 days in the year we hold a real ale festival down at North Weald, which obviously attracts a different profile of people. And that's not part of this licence. And then we also have, during the year, a handful of enthusiast-based events, which tend to be, put it bluntly, older men. Let's leave it at that. And then the third kind of group of people we have our dining trains, which again are not necessarily subject to this licence because we can serve alcohol, and we do serve alcohol on the train under a separate thing. It tends to be older, retired couples.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hadley, do you want to come back?
With another question. Where do the majority of the people who visit you park?
We provide a bus service from our Epping station, which takes us, so people come by public transport. We have limited parking at our North Weald station, and we also encourage people to park in the public car parks at Ongar.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Lyon.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're running a service at North Weald. I mean, what sort of experience has that given you, and has there been any sort of antisocial behaviour or any issues raised from that particular location?
In short, the answer is none. We haven't had any problems relating to the operation of our licence at North Weald.
Thank you, Councillor Lyon. That was actually going to be my question. So I thought quite an important issue. So there we are. Right. Now, if the objectors would like to ask any questions, if you'll please obviously take it in turns, and you have to push the button for the microphone and first tell us your name so that we have it for the record of the minutes of the meeting. So if you would like to ask any questions of the applicant.
Debbie Dorita. With your off sales, will someone be allowed to go into the shop, purchase alcohol and then drink it on your premises without paying an entry fee to EOR, like buying a ticket to enter the station? And can they go and sit in your picnic area without buying a ticket? Like, it's just free picnicking in theory.
The short answer is no. We have platform tickets that we sell for people to use our railway services. However, the area where the shop is at Ongar means that someone would be able to access the shop without buying a ticket and buy what they want. So we can sell gifts to people who aren't passengers of our railway. However, as I said, the only intention of the sorts of things to sell from our shop is this. There are no optics, there's no bar, there's nothing else. I want to reassure you, our intention is to sell alcohol to ticket holders. We do not want to become a destination.
Debbie Dritter again. I have a plan of where you intend to have the alcohol sales. And there is an area behind what is now the gates, the white painted gates beside your station. And that is not part of the shop or the picnic area. So what do you intend to do with that?
I don't... The plan for that is that during our winter schedule, and subject to a suitable temporary event notice if needed, in the summertime would be to use it for a couple of days for our Real Ale Festival. I don't know if this is introducing new evidence, Chair, and if it is, I would apologise. But what I wanted to show, if it's helpful, is that area you're looking at looks like that. Is this helpful, Chair, or is it?
Yes, all information is helpful.
So
here.
let me
We just show the panel.
So may I borrow your map there? I can show you what the committee members are doing. So
Yes, we've got the map.
Right.
Yeah. We've got the map.
So this in red
Yep.
here is the area looking from the platform here.
Yep.
Right, okay. So it looks like this. So the plan is to have, helpfully placed by our benefit, is a temporary structure, a Christmas chalet type thing, which is facing away from the houses towards the station building in this area here. That goes from there. And that's how we do that. Let me show you that.
No? Putting a structure, isn't it? That's plan.
Email this drawing to the office if that's helpful.
No, not this. We're dealing with this one today. So what isn't introduced today doesn't come into our deliberations. Right, please go on.
My concern is that the boundary of that area is incredibly close to the residential properties.
Sorry, can you just confirm, did you say that was going to be part of a temporary event notice and wouldn't be part of this application?
No, what?
Yeah, try again.
Yep. What in the summertime, we run our Real Ale Festival. If we need to, for want of a better word, have more space at Ongar, we would form that as part of our temporary event notice. Our plan for the winter schedule is to use that space where the weighbridge is as a serving area for our sort of light trains. That's what, and the cabins and the light will be facing away from any residential properties, and they're sited some distance away from those places as well.
Right, okay, yep. Turn off. Right, go ahead. Another question?
Sorry, Aston Manning, volunteered by Jane Parr as representation. In connection with that subject, where that temporary structure would be, obviously you're saying it's going to be facing the station itself as opposed to the residential properties. Would it will we be informed when these events will be taking place? I mean, our residents as such, just so they're aware. Or would it just happen whenever you choose? I'm asking for just notice, basically, to the residents, if that's possible. If it's not possible, just let us know.
In short, the main, we can let you know, and we have no problems, and we'd want to encourage, engage with our sort of local residents. But the main time is when these will be happening later is in the winter time, when we've got our lights trains, and then during the summertime, if we happen to be running a later service, which is all, it's all published on our website, so it's not going to be there. However, if the residents feel that it's important, should we say, then we can take some steps to make sure that the Meadowview Residents Association, for instance, is made aware of our annual schedule of events, and they can incorporate it into some notice. But generally speaking, the place to look is our website, and to look at the times that we're running trains, and to recognise that we're not going to be opening unless there's a train running. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, we have got a query here for the panel. We're looking at the map on page 35, and you're talking about these temporary structures that could well go up in the little section of land next to the building. Is that part of the application today, or is that covered by TENS in the future?
Chair, as long as it falls within the boundary on the plan, then it will be covered under the existing licence.
Okay, and as far as you're concerned, it is within the boundary?
Yes, that appears to be the case, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, if you'd like to...
If I may just add one particular point there, Chair, there is one, the Real Ale Festival covers Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you'll note that the licence in the summer schedule only goes to 5 o'clock. If it's a Real Ale Festival, we want to run a bit later than that, so we would need to apply for a temporary event notice to allow us to use the space at Ongar in accordance with our commercial wishes. I want to just be sure we're bound. We want to be bound by that, to not give the impression that we're trying to get something in under the radar.
Okay. Right. And more questions?
My understanding when the railway started was...
could you just identify yourself? Sorry, for the record.
Nigel Main, Limbos Drive. My understanding of the railway when it started was that it would only operate at weekends and bank holidays, as horrendous as that is. However, I note the application here is for Friday, whole day. So is this encouraging an extension of that operation to another day, so effectively not just the weekends and bank holidays, but Fridays, weekends and bank holidays?
Can you turn your microphone off? Thank you.
I have to be, this doesn't sound very good. The railway has got the rights and privileges offered it by the 1859 Epping Railways Act. I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but it's an important point. We are entitled by law to operate passenger and freight services at any time that we choose to make a commercial decision. That's always been the case, and it will always be the case until that act is repealed. So even if people have said in the past that we only plan to run at the weekends, it's certainly not come from our understanding. It's somebody else has mentioned. If you remember, the implication was when the railway was sold by the Underground, was it would run as a commuter service, which obviously wouldn't restrict it just to weekends. It'd be Monday to Friday operation. So that doesn't particularly answer your question, but the idea being that what we want to do is to run it as a visitor attraction, which pushes us towards running it at the weekends and to those times when it's in our commercial interest to do that. And that's why we need the full range of secondary spending activities, including a little bit of alcohol, to make sure that we run it properly for the good of our volunteers and the community.
Yep, come back, John.
So I fully understand that the railway can do what it likes. As much as I dislike that, I recognise it's a reality. I think the point being, it was very clearly stated that it would be bank holidays and weekends, and you, as you say, you have the right to run it at other times, and you obviously choose to do so. But I'm objecting from the point of view that this is encouraging perhaps it to be more viable to run it on a weekday than it would otherwise be.
Thanks for that, Toby. I mean, I guess where I'm caught, Mr. Main, is the requirement to make a licence application that we can understand and is viable for the future, and to meet, because what I'm saying is that our summer schedule, which runs from February through to October, allows us to open trains on Friday. I can tell you that the only time when it's viable for us to think about running a train on a Friday is in August. Apart from possibly weekends and Good Friday and occasional times here and there, there's no plan to run on, say, the third Friday in June. It's not commercially viable for us. However, to have a licence application that spells out in some sort of complicated detail, whenever we only run on Fridays when there's an R in the month, is kind of beyond us. So that's why we've set it out in the way we can. So you're right, I have got the right to run or to sell alcohol on a Friday in June, but there's no commercial imperative to it, and the only reason I've asked for that is because it's complicated. Now, if there's a method or a way of working of capturing that under the various bits and pieces, then we can talk about that.
Thank you. If you haven't any more questions, you now have the right to make statements as objectors, which the applicant or the panel can then ask questions of you. So if you would like to make a statement just outlining your objections, that would be, this is the right time to do it.
Okay, so Nigel Main again. I think I hear what you say about you encourage parking in the local car parks and elsewhere. Of course, the reality is that people, unfortunately, don't like to walk very far these days, and I don't know how that message gets to them, but certainly the evidence, as a resident of Bowes Drive, is that they do park in Bowes Drive. They quite often park inconsiderately. So as an example, I think by the highway code you shouldn't park within 10 feet of a junction, etc. So I live opposite Marks Avenue, and often there's a car right on the bend at Marks Avenue. So it makes it quite a dangerous junction. It's blind for people coming out and coming down that road, and it makes it difficult to manoeuvre, and indeed for delivery trucks, etc., to get round to Marks Avenue. Obviously for visitors that come to visit us, then they end up parking at the bottom of the road, really, essentially, because all the parking towards the top part of the road is taken. So, hear your message, but the reality, I think, is that it does create parking, and I presume that's why, I can't remember whether it's Banson's Lane or Banson's Way, but the next road along there has got permit parking now, I guess, to address that. So, I think the evidence is that it does create a parking problem. Would be my first point. The consumption of alcohol outdoor, I have no objection to alcohol being sold as off sales in your presentation packs. Fine, doesn't have any impact, I don't think, on us, then it's fine. I have no objection to selling alcohol on the trains, etc., because once again, potentially it doesn't really generate any particular nuisance. However, I do have an objection to alcohol being sold and consumed, for instance, in the picnic area, where not only will it be consumed by those people waiting for a train, but of course in all probability those people who've been on a train who then decide to stop and have a beer and a conversation, etc. So of course that will have two impacts. First impact will be the general noise from that picnic area, etc., which is not far away from the residential housing. And secondly, it will extend the time at which cars are parked in the nearby roads. So it will also add to the parking problems. And the third point, I think, is the one I've already made, that essentially I am concerned that by extending the licence to Friday, it might make Friday more viable and therefore effectively push those problems into Friday as well as the weekends and bank holidays. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Should work. Try again. That's it.
Hello, Debbie Dorita again. I object from a point of view that directly opposite the station there is an elderly residential building, a large elderly residential building. So the noise is going to impact them. Just into Victoria Road, there is a mother or a young family and baby unit and many children on our estate, and the noise will impact them if people are drinking in the outside areas. Picnic area, okay, so the elderly people have to put up with chatter. We all know that alcohol makes people a bit more boisterous. Also, you started off, Dean, by mentioning that your Real Ale event is held at North Weald, but you've gone on to say the Real Ale event at Ongar to come, which will create more noise and a different type of person visiting. And we have seen quite a few merry wobbly people walking down our road. We often have people wandering down to the bottom of Victoria Road, and they sit on the benches that are outside our house having a rest, which is quite amusing really, but we don't want it to happen. They're on private property. So we do object to having, intoxicated people, which there will be with a Real Ale event in the area, in our private estate.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to ask any questions of the objector?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, one for Nigel, it's just perhaps not relevant for the, particularly for the Planning Licensing Committee, but have you thought of applying for a CPZ, a controlled parking zone for Bowes Drive? And the railway would be more than happy, I'm sure, in supporting you on that. We're already covered by a private version of a controlled parking zone down Station Approach, which went in without, I would say, without out consultation with us at the time. But certainly, that's one side of things that I would put back, ask whether you're willing to deal with that.
Okay, thank you.
No, Jermaine. So I'm not quite sure entirely how a controlled parking zone works. It clearly impacts on residents in terms of visitors, etc. I don't know if it's the same as a permit parking zone where the resident ends up paying, in which case it absolutely should be the railway. This is a problem created by the railway, and therefore any funding needed to control the parking should be provided by the railway.
Can I ask a question myself there? Is Victoria Road a private road or public road? It's a private road, it's not adopted, in which case you can't get a parking scheme going on that.
Sorry, Chairman, the car parking issues aren't really a matter for your licensing committee in any event. I'm just saying it so that the objectors understand it's not something that you can take into consideration.
I was going to come on to that, but I thought I'd start with the fact that if it's a private estate, parking is not controlled by the by county highways. Okay, so.
And I think Mr. Main is in Bowes Drive, which is on the other side. Which is a public road. Which is a public road on the other side of things. So that, just refer that one there. A question for Mr. Ritter, please. You've mentioned about people working their way down the drive, down your road, and sitting on the benches looking at. Have you any evidence that those people are passengers of the railway and that they're inebriated as a result of activities they've undertaken on the railway?
No, I have no evidence. It was just seen.
Thank you for confirming that, because it's really important to understand that the people coming to our railway are not some sort of modern version of street drinkers in some sort of way.
The people that have sat on our benches have been extremely polite. Obviously, they are inebriated, but they've been polite and they've happily wandered off when approached. So, they're not offensive. I'll give them that. But they're sitting there eating their sandwiches with all their train spotting gear. So,
You recognise them by their anoraks, no doubt.
Well,
Okay.
let's not engage in stereotypes, eh? Just the other sort of question for you is and this isn't leading. Yesterday, I went down to Ongar Station and measured the distance from our picnic area to the boundary of Weybridge Court, which is the older people's residence that you spoke about. I'm not aware. I'm not aware that there's nothing from McCarthy and Stone or Longer Living or whatever they're called. I can't remember what they're called. Who manage and own that premises as part of the objections, even though they will have been consulted. Am I right in thinking that Weybridge Court will have been consulted?
Yes, Chair. So all premises, including businesses, would have been written to if they fall within that 150 metre radius, and you're quite right, we've received no representation from them.
Okay, thank you.
So the question is you possibly, are you aware that the distance from the boundary of our property to the to Weybridge Court is probably in the order of about 25 metres?
No, I've not measured it.
That's fine. I think there may be just one other question I had for Debbie. If you bear with me a minute. These things are supposed to make things life easier for you, but in fact you spend all your time scanning to and from it all. The other thing I wanted just to refer to your objection, Mr. Ritter, is I think you mentioned that there were some tracks that run alongside Victoria Road. Just for the purpose of the map, you can see there's 3 tracks down at Ongar Station, and it's the one that's got a platform is the only one that takes passengers. There's no proposal. Are you aware that we don't run passenger trains on the other 2 tracks, basically? Does that make sense? Have I misunderstood your objection?
No, it's not a point I've looked at. The point is it could be, I'm sure it could be accessed by people.
I guess I wanted just to be assured that it can't be. It's an operational part of the railway. It's a siding, basically, and it's made up of rough, unmade-up ground, is fenced off from passenger access.
So you are guaranteeing there is no intent of selling alcohol as a sort of a restaurant train on that siding track?
Certainly nothing at the moment, no, and no intention. No, wait there. I can never say never. The wider issue, I suppose, is at the moment those 2 tracks are sidings. We have a right, should we say, in perpetuity to operate trains in and out of that platform. If we were to do that, and then so that's just run passenger trains. If we were to do anything different, such as seek to sell alcohol from in the vicinity of those areas, on the platforms in those areas, if we made them up, that would, and I'm looking at yourselves, would need to be the subject of a fresh application or a formal amendment to this application. So this doesn't give us, I guess, this doesn't give us the right to do what you're concerned about, but if we were to do something like that, I'd need to come back and seek permission. That's my understanding of what I'm asking today.
Chair, if I can just
yes,
come in.
please do.
If there was any alteration to that, then the applicant's quite right. A fresh application would need to be submitted.
Can I just come in?
Yeah, please.
Just to confirm from looking at the diagram, that's not within the application for the licence anyway. So I think that's the important thing.
That's right, it's not.
No. Okay, thank you. You've had the opportunity to question the objectors. Do you have a final statement that you would like to make that doesn't introduce any new items? Oh, I'm sorry, we can have
Can
another
I
question. I
just-
do apologise. I thought we'd
Just
finished.
one, I've been thinking and a bit slow. It's in connection with a couple of points raised by the person who I'm kind of speaking on behalf of. Litter and a point raised earlier on connected to the policing, Challenge 25 or whatever it's called. In terms of litter, how is that going to be taken care of? We don't have a dust cart or a dustman that comes down that road, down Station Road, Victoria Road, etc., apart from taking general refuse away. So that's one concern. It might have no impact at all, but it's just a concern I'm just raising. And also, in terms of the behaviour after alcohol has been consumed, you know, if it becomes abusive, offensive to anybody down that road, that stretch, how is that going to be managed? How is it going to be policed? That's just a question and the objection I've got, really.
I'll comment after you, so if you'd like to speak first.
In relation to litter, we've got lots of litter bins and things like that on our station. Remember, typically, we expect people to come onto our railway, either at Northfield or at Ongar, at some point in their day with us or evening. They will buy a glass of wine, a bottle of beer or something like that. And then the receptacle that they use for, if it's on our dining trains, we use glasses. So obviously we collect those at the end of the day. And if it's something like one of our sort of light trains, then it will be served in a plastic glass. The drink consumed on the premises typically, and then just thrown in the bin on our bin. So that's how I don't see, and the other thing we're selling is our gift packs here. I don't see that there'll be necessarily an additional arisings of litter out of the basis of that. In relation to the other situation about police and unruly behaviour and those kind of things, it's not something that we anticipate having. However, we are governed by the licensing objectives. If someone's clearly inebriated, we are not going to be selling them alcohol. If there's any problems, we wouldn't hesitate to involve the police. We've got good working relationships with the police. Most of our sites, if not all of our sites, are covered by CCTV, which provides us with evidence in the case of should we need that. And the training that we offer to our volunteers as well. And that's how we seek to prevent or react to the evidence of unruly behaviour. However, the biggest sort of, should we say, passengers that we have, it's grown-ups with children. They're not the ones that we typically associate with rowdiness around licensed premises.
Thank you. The litter was an interesting question, but it isn't something, particularly on a private road, that we can consider for the licensing application, unfortunately. I've got one question, and that is to do with the second diagram. No, don't worry. Look at this one if you've got a... It's just that you've got a blue area and a red outline, and I take it for granted it's the area within the red outline inside the building that sales would take place.
That's right. That's exactly right, Chair. And what you see there is our shop area, which we allow those. Then we've got a waiting room area. There's also a little buffer stop cafe, and then there's the main area. That was to offer us the flexibility, should we need it, to sell. So people can sit inside and consume a drink if there's poor weather outside.
Of which we've had recent experience. Right, okay, thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Hadley?
Thank you. With this application, are you expecting an increase in the number of visitors and hence parking?
We're expecting an increase in the number of visitors regardless of the application, Councillor. Our plan this year is to run our light trains from Ongar. We ran them successfully. Well, we ran them from Northfield quite successfully last year, but we had some significant problems. So we decided to review the operation and run it from Ongar this side. So the passengers are going to be there, and we now want to make sure they have a good time when they come here with us.
Thank you. Councillor Malone? No? Anything else?
No.
Right. The objectors have had a chance to have made a final statement, and so has the applicants. We've now got to... Yes?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't actually get a chance to make a final closing
right,
remark
I thought what
or
you
two.
said was the statement,
No,
but
no, no,
please carry on. We must give you every opportunity.
It was a reply to the questions. Okay. I mean, I guess I'll keep it very short because I have had a chance to make the points I want to make. Is I'm hoping that I believe that some of the comments that we have from the objectors arose from a misunderstanding of our intention of the application, and I've come today to try and explain the purpose behind our winter schedule and our summer schedule to show that it's aligned to the needs of our commercial passenger operations. That's the other side is I wanted just to demonstrate that our simple application is designed to offer a drink or a gift to visitors to our local important local visitor attraction. I've also provided within the application the steps the railway will take to ensure that the licence objectives will be met, and I'd like you to note that a similar application in Northwood has operated successfully for over a year in line with those steps. With that in mind, I would urge you to grant the application as submitted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Would we prefer to withdraw, or we ask everyone else? Yeah, do you want us to withdraw?
Nothing really matters, does it?
Not a great deal, but it just... Yeah, do you want to... In which case, if I could ask everyone then to withdraw for a short time, and the panel will consider the application. We'll call you back in as soon as possible. We consider that the application satisfies the necessary requirements in order to be considered, as it is on the prescribed form, it has been advertised, and relevant notifications given. We are grateful to the parties for their representations to us this morning. We have taken these and the written materials submitted to us into account. We have considered what is appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives and the relevant parts of the Council's licensing policy and the Home Office's guidance. During our deliberations in private session, our advisory officers gave us the following advice. Conditions imposed must be appropriate, be capable of being enforceable, and must not undermine the licensing objectives. Each case must be determined on its own merits. The decision of this subcommittee is that the application for a premises licence in respect of Ongar Station, Station Approach High Street, Ongar, be granted subject to the conditions as submitted by the applicant within the application and the representations which were previously agreed with the applicant and Essex Police on page 58 of the agenda, so far as they add to or supersede the applicant's conditions, which we consider are reasonable and proportionate and will not undermine the 4 licensing objectives, namely the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. We are also attaching the mandatory conditions contained in sections 19 to 21 of the Licensing Act 2003. The applicant and the objectors are reminded of their right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the date of the written notification of this decision, and of the review mechanism under the Licensing Act 2003 because of any matters arising in the future at the premises in connection with any of the 4 licensing objectives, which I will sign today on the 8th of November. At this point, both sides have the right to appeal to the magistrates, and anything, if matters arise in the future, can be recalled for review. Right, thank you very much for attending, all of you. And I now declare the session closed, and I will sign the document.